F5, connection to main structure. This lecture deals with the zoom between the secondary structure, the facade itself, and the main structure, and the need of connection between these two. And you remember this slide, the self-weight, the wind load, the payload, they all have to be collected by the facade and then be transported to the main building. And that's happening via fixed connections or via loose connections, depending on the tolerances and the movement of the buildings. But how do these connections look like? We browse through all different types of building envelope facades, which we are used to. This is a brick system, which you see on the left side. The brick system needs to be, let's say, a ventilated cavity brick facade with an inner main structure of concrete, the gray part which we see, then an insulation. And then you see these anchorage plates, the anchorage plates like these, which are connected to the concrete and then keep the outer layer of a brick structure in position so that it doesn't fall over in the setting. This whole thing needs to have a base, and that base, for example, could happen to be done like this with the steel bracket, which is then anchored back to the main structure and then takes the loads, which you see on this line, takes the loads of the brick system to put down the dead loads to the main structure. Alternative solution, cavity facade or ventilated facade with natural stone. We see the natural stone plates. We see the insulated concrete column, and we see some anchorage coming out of that concrete column, taking some drilled boreholes into the natural stone plates, and then the next one is stapled on top, and then the next one is stapled on top, and the next one is stapled on top. There are two different types of doing this, either with this kind of system, which you need to fix at the concrete plate itself, or with a rail system, a gutter system, which allows you to position the anchors in the position when necessary. For the natural stone, this is the windows. Punched windows, so simple windows being placed on a structure, on the main structure, either purely in concrete, which we see at the top part with this small bracket, or into a masonry structure, which is within the concrete structure. And we see small brackets taking the loads of the window, payloads, as well as wind load, as well as dead load, to then bring them back into the main structure. Quite simple setting. Another solution, this is a cast glass structure, which then structurally needs to be transported down to the main concrete floor slab. When we look at this different picture, you see there's this metal line which carries the metal L-shaped profile, which carries the cast glass, and then there are these anchors here, which actually position the L-shaped metal in front of the concrete floor slab and then fix them on top of the concrete floor slab. We see that similar fixation to the concrete floor slab quite at the top, which is a typical stick system. In this case, the frequently used wood system. What we see is the horizontal bracket is fixed on top of the concrete to allow the stick to be positioned correctly. And here we see the bottom part, where we see the bracket being positioned here with the long borehole to allow movement, and then the stick system being brought in position as well. Same can happen to aluminium systems. So this is an aluminium system. We see the bottom part at the left, where the L-shaped main substructure of the facade system is connected to the main structure, and we see the top part where there's this bracket moved into the aluminium system to still allow some tolerances, movements, but also taking the horizontal forces as necessary. Then a complete skeleton steel structure in front of a main structure. This steel structure is positioned at the bottom part into these brackets in position, fixed, and then the loose point, which is this one, which we see at the top part, just as a hooked detail. So it's actually hooked in here to allow movements of the main structure versus the secondary steel structure, which we see here. And then we come to the unitized facade systems. We see these unitized facade systems, this part and then the other ones over there, which are actually hung on these brackets. The brackets are brought either vertical or horizontal close to the main structure, the floor slab, and then the unitized systems are hung into it, the next one into it, the next one into it, to secure that they take their position. At the bottom part of these unitized systems, they have these sliders which allow the unitized system to get in position and then being horizontal fixed but vertical able to move if necessary, which we also can see in this high-rise building. You see the first floor is done with unitized facades already, and then you see the brackets on top of that. The next two floors already the brackets are fixed, and then the ones above are not yet fixed, and they're still in construction with concrete work quite at the top of this building. This is the way you fix facades, and as usual, this is TU Delft, TU Darmstadt, TU Munich Facade Education Project.